Hi everyone, it's Tosin here. Welcome back to Made for Us. Today we have something a bit different, a crossover episode with another podcast that I think you'll enjoy. Though we will of course be back with a brand new episode of Made for Us next week. Today's crossover is with Beyond 6 Seconds, hosted by Carolyn Kiel, which features neurodivergent people from around the world. Each week, Carolyn speaks with neurodivergent entrepreneurs, creators, and advocates about their lives, identities, and issues that are important to them. Carolyn's guest in this episode is Tiffany Hammond, a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and disability advocate. Her children's book, A Day with No Words, is about a Black mother and her non-speaking autistic son who use a tablet to communicate with each other and the world around them. A Day with No Words is based on Tiffany's personal experience as a Black autistic mother of 2 autistic sons. Through her book and her advocacy, Tiffany is shifting narratives around autism and communication. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, you can search for Beyond 6 Seconds wherever you get your podcast. I've also included links in the show notes. I'll see you next week for a new episode of Made for Us. In the meantime, enjoy this conversation between Carolyn Kiel and Tiffany Hammond.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories of neurodivergent people. I'm your host, Carolyn Kiel. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Tiffany Hammond, a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and disability advocate. She is the author of A Day with No Words and the upcoming picture book, How Do You Spell Belong, coming in 2027. A Day with No Words was originally published in 2023 and was re-released on November 4th, 2025. This colorful and engaging picture book shows the bond between a mother and child and follows them on a day when they use a tablet to communicate with others instead of using speech. The tablet is a form of augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, which refers to ways that people can communicate without speaking. A Day with No Words is based on the experiences of Tiffany, an autistic mother, and her son Aiden, a non-speaking autistic boy. The book is illustrated by Kate Cosgrove. For a limited time, Beyond 6 Seconds is giving away 3 copies of the book to listeners. I'll share more details about the giveaway at the end of this episode and in the show notes. Through Tiffany's platform, Fidgets and Fries, she shares stories about autism, identity, and the fullness of Black and disabled family life. She's the proud mother of 2 autistic sons and uses her lived experiences to shift narratives around autism and communication. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really excited to talk with you today and to learn more about A Day with No Words. How did you get the inspiration to write it?
I wrote it as a post one day. These were days we did at home, and we called them no talk days. And one day I was just like, I'll just write it into a post. Like, I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to share. Like online, I was like, oh, I'll just share this. And so like I wrote about our no talk days, and then I put how they worked. And then I shared what we learned, like what I learned on these days and these outings. And then I just hit post, and it kind of just took off. I think it was like my first viral post, and I wasn't even expecting that because I felt like what that wasn't really new, but a lot of the comments was like, I don't know why I didn't think of this, or what is this? So it's like, well, I just felt like it was normal for families that had loved ones that used AAC or whatever, but I was just trying to like take it like a little bit further. I got the idea from my youngest son. He just one day was like, hey, we should talk like Aiden talks. And then it just kind of like took off from there. I started like real small, like 30 minutes a day. And then I grew the time to like an hour. And then I did it outside in the neighborhood. And then I did it using pictures only. So like when I first started, I was using the pictures with Aiden. And then when I would go out in the community, I would like type text on the app to people. So it was quicker. Then I said, no, then I'll try and do it like how Aiden's doing it with only pictures. So it was like a step-by-step thing. And I shared about it. It took off. And then I didn't think about it for a few weeks and stuff. An editor from Simon & Schuster reached out to me and was like, hey, you look like you would be a good person to write a children's book. And I was like, you definitely don't follow me then. Cause like, I don't even talk about that kind of stuff. She was saying like, hey, I love your Instagram and all of this. And I'm like, well, then you must know that I talk about like super heavy, hard. This is not kid friendly stuff. And so like, I wasn't seeing myself as a children's book writer. I just saw myself as someone who had children, but not someone who could write a children's book. And I was writing novels online on Instagram. And I'm like, y'all want me to make a short book. So I was like, I can't do this. But she sent me a follow-up email and she was like, write a book about this. And she had a link on it. It was an Instagram link. And I didn't know what it was to yet until I clicked it. And when I clicked it, it sent me to the post that I wrote about No Talk Things. And it stuck in my head after that. So going back and forth with her about it, I think I wrote like a sample. And I don't think she liked it, but she didn't have the heart to tell me she didn't like it. She just kind of ghosted me. So it was just like, okay, well, maybe that was not good. But the idea was still in my head about it. And so I was like, if I ever get the opportunity to publish a book or write a book, that was going to be my first one because it was in my head. I couldn't get it out. So when I made the post looking for illustrators, I didn't even have the book written. I said, I need an illustrator. What are your rates? I made a post and like, that one got a lot of responses. And then I got a message from the publisher who published it the first time. And they were like, hey, let's talk. So we talked. I didn't even have the book written out. I just gave the idea of the book. Mm-hmm. So they liked it. And they were like, okay, well, we want to publish it. So like, then I had to write the manuscript. So I was like, I have a lot of faith in me to like not have the book even shown because most publishers want the book. If it's a picture book, you got to have the manuscript done. It's like no excuse to not have it done. It's like 600 to 1200 words or something. And they want to see the whole thing. You're like writing a novel or something, they'll take sample chapters, but picture book, your book got to be done. So that was rare for me. How I got into publishing it and stuff, it was not common. But I wrote the book and I was given 6 months to write it. It took me 4.5 months to write it. And I didn't start writing it until like month 4. So I was sitting on it for a while, like banging my head into the wall because I didn't really know how to write it. The editor that I had said, don't think about the 600 word count limit. You can overwrite it and then we can edit it. And once she told me that, I was like, better that I knocked it out because I was stuck on that 600 word. I was like, this is not fitting. This is not fitting. This is not fitting. And so I overwrote it and they cut out pieces. And that's how I reached the word count. And that's how the book came to be in the world.
That's really cool. It is so different from what you typically write because you write long form about very serious topics. Having to write something between 600 or 1200 words, that's difficult. People tend to think that writing longer things is hard, but I personally think writing very short things is hard. But I guess knowing that you can overwrite and then edit things down helps a lot.
It does. And I think the hardest thing that I've ever written is a children's book. Like, that's hard. And you don't know, kids are tough. They're like the roughest critics, And then with picture books, you have to not only make it engaging, but like entertaining. It has to have a lesson. Then it has to be, within the word count. Then it has to make sense. They have to walk away from the book with something new that they didn't have before they read it. So it's a lot. It's very involved. And so that's like the hardest thing I've ever written was picture books.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what part of the book you want to try and leave to the illustrator to try and tell or what you want to have it with the words. And then you're like, is this going to be enough? And it's a lot. It's involved. But once I got it out of me, and I'm like, hey, I kind of like this. So like, we'll write another one. Like, yeah, I like it now. At first, I was like, no, I don't like this. And now I love it.
That's so awesome. Yeah. And one of many unique things about the book is that it's told from the perspective of a non-speaking autistic boy. The main character is Aiden, which is also the name of your oldest son, who is also a non-speaking autistic boy, and his interactions mainly with his mama for the day. How did you decide to tell the story from Aiden's perspective?
That was like the hardest thing to do, because it was like, I don't want to speak for him. And then at the same time, I was looking at the relationship that I have with him, and no one knows him like I know him. And like his dad knows him, and like his brother knows him. And I said, like, if I write it from this angle and not mine, if I write it from his, I wanted it to be real experiences that we've been through. And I want to include real reactions that he's had, real things that he's done, and real feelings that I've seen him exhibit, share, express and put out. Like, so it's not me coming in there. I'm like, I just made this up about him. It's like, I want it to be real. And I'm just telling you about it. I'm just narrating what he has done and what our experiences are together. And because it's like the biggest thing is, there's nothing that my son has gone through in his short 18 years of living on this earth that has not impacted me in some way, and that I have not experienced on some level. And I was like, I want to tap into that. So I know how he feels. I know what it means when he looks like this, when he gives you a certain look, when he taps this button, when he holds my hand this way, when he makes a sound. I know what that sound means. And I know what he's feeling right now. So I was like, if I write it from this side, you're not going to add nothing else to it. Like, don't add nothing that you haven't seen, felt, experienced, done, did, whatever. Don't add nothing. Because then that's when it gets like, for me, I felt like it gets a little muddy right there. So I was like, I didn't want to go there. So I was like, I want to just focus on the things that we know he's done, we know he's experienced and stuff. And that's why it's always so interesting to see how they categorize my book sometimes. And some places they've listed it like under fiction and stuff. And I'm just like, do y'all list all picture books under fiction? Or like this real boy, this real Aiden, I'm a real mom. That's us. We went through these days. We went to the park. We had that experience at the park. It was more involved and more in depth than what it was. But 600 words can't put everything in there. But we had those experiences. He loves his chicken nuggets. He loves his fries. He loves his orange soda. He pushes buttons to talk. He can occasionally inform people that he is autistic or has autism. He loves to spin in grass, barefoot, after rain. So it was like, I need to just make sure I'm including him, what I know of him, what I see of him, what I experience of him, and then the both of our experiences together. So it's not me coming in there like, this is a random child. I don't know. I'm just going to write like something and stuff. So yeah, it's a delicate balance. And then I had to carry that balance into the second book of his dad and him.
Yeah. I was wondering how much of the story is based directly on your family's real life experiences. I assumed a lot of it, if not all of it was, considering Aiden has the same name as the main character in the book. I think it's really powerful to be able to base it on real life lived experiences and tell it through his eyes.
And he knows things. And that's like the biggest thing. Like, I wanted to write a book that if I read it to him, he'd be proud of that. And he'd be okay with that. And he'd be like, Mama did good.
Yeah.
They want to like write something about him. And then he was not going to be okay with that. And when I was writing it, I would switch the mom, me with Aiden. And I'm like saying, okay, would I be okay if that was my stuff? And that's kind of like what I do online when I share too. Like, it always takes me like 3 days or 4 days, sometimes a week to share a post if it has to do with anybody in my family. I always switch the names because I'm like, if I'm not comfortable with people knowing that about me, I'm not going to share that about my kid or my husband. I'm always switching our names and making sure it sounds good. Like, I would be okay with that. And then I go to the family and then I read that to them. And I'm like, how y'all feel about it? Because everything's like family affair. You got to be okay with the internet's forever, even if you delete archives or whatever.
Yeah.
It's there. So you want to
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure you do okay the best you can with sharing not only yourself, but your family if you go that route. So that was me trying to honor them and respect them at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be really thoughtful about sharing those stories. It can be so difficult, especially when sharing experiences with children, just making sure, as you said, that you're respectful and tell it from a perspective that they're comfortable with and sharing it with them. What does Aiden think of the book? Has he given his review of it yet?
Oh yeah, like in the beginning, you loved it. He would tap and he smiled a lot. He had favorite pages. 2 years later though, he's like, "God, I don't care."
He's over it.
He's done, moved on. Because it has been 2 years of traveling the country, reading it over and over again, sharing the picture, sharing the story behind it, read over and over. And he came to almost all of those.
Wow.
Presentations and school visits. And it is always cute because I'll tell the schools and stuff and the students, I'm like, yeah, Aiden's here. He's in the back. And they're all excited, like waving at him. And he's just sitting there, he's smiling. And then he falls asleep. That was 2 years of that. And he's a teenager. Oh, he's 18 now. So he's just I liked it for as long as I could like it. And now it's just, I could hear it or I could not hear it. And I'd be okay either way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where he's at right now. So every once in a while, bring it up and out to him and stuff, but not as much because he's still a teenager. He's 18, like Rihanna and stuff. He's not trying to read picture books and stuff. So, but yeah, he did enjoy it, especially at the beginning. And his brother did too. And they're both teenagers. And now they're whatever.
Yeah.
I'll come to your library visit and I'll fall asleep while you present during your library visit.
Spent a long time with the book and the story. He's a teenager now, not as excited about picture books, but it's still cool to be a main character in the book. So that's really awesome.
Oh yeah, it's so cool. I think he likes that part of it. I think he's also me. Sometimes he gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Sometimes with and it's always interesting because I don't mention his name in the book. Nobody knows his name until if you flipped it over, that's when it mentioned his name. It talks about joint Aiden. And yeah, so when you go to the school visits and stuff, they weren't connecting it yet until, they would ask the question hey, is Aiden real? And this, and then I'm like, yeah, and he's back there,
Oh, wow.
And so they always want to ask him more questions. And what's your favorite fries? Do you like to do anything else? What's your favorite music? So I think he can do 1 or 2 visits. So after that, he's overwhelmed. But he likes it. They like it. They're just tired of it.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. So what kind of experiences of a non-speaking autistic child do you portray in the book?
I wanted to highlight the fact that he can hear all the voices, everybody talking, everybody around him, but the people around him don't hear him.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see him. I wanted to highlight how isolating that could be sometimes. And I think that Kate did a super amazing job of articulating that in the art.
Mm-hmm.
So where I didn't have to use more words to explain that. So when she had the part where he's just standing and you can only see his back and he's holding the iPad and you have all these tall people, legs, and you see all the talk bubbles. And that's how it could feel to him. And he's hearing all these different voices, loud, soft, fast, slow. I wanted to showcase that. I wanted to show a lot of the sensory things that he has, the spinning barefoot, the flapping. He hugs trees and he still does that to this day. I wanted to show the things that he loves. I love that he goes to the park. I love that he can still have fun, that he can go outside, That was one of the biggest things that I wanted to show without actually saying it. I don't get that many words. And I don't know if the families that I wanted to see that picked up on it quite, but the biggest thing is I wanted him at home as short as possible. So it's like, boom, like first page, you see he's waking up and then boom, they're out the door.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing in between there. Like he's gone. I wanted to show that we can go outside and we're supposed to go outside. We're part of this world. This world belongs to us as well. We need to go outside. I wanted to show us outside doing things, going to parks, going to restaurants, playing, having fun, and showing that just because he doesn't speak, that he can still have a very meaningful life. And I wanted to show a few of the ways that he exists in this body of his that doesn't speak. So playing sensory things and his favorite foods, being able to share that glimpse into our world was very amazing. And because this book did so well, I was honored with the privilege of being able to do a second book and then expanding on that. So I got to use more words.
Nice.
So like
Yeah.
I get to have more of what his experiences are.
And since the book is told from his perspective, a lot of his sensory joy really comes through, and you get, as the reader, get to understand it better. Like when he's spinning on the wet grass after the rain. Someone looking from the outside might not understand that, but since you're hearing his perspective, you hear like how great it feels and how wonderful and how he just loves it. And it just helps really extend that type of understanding of sensory joy of autistic people, which I think is cool.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, fabulous. How is the story in A Day with No Words different from what's typically included in children's literature about autism?
I wanted something that didn't make autism feel scary or different. So different. I wanted it to reflect what I do with fidgets and cries. Like, I don't like to teach people academically about autism. I feel like by the time you come to me, you kind of know what autism is. And I don't want to tell you what it is. Like, I don't want to teach it to you. I don't want to tell you red flags. I don't want to tell you symptoms. I don't want to tell you what language you could use and what you shouldn't use. First person or, identity first. I don't want to do that. There's so many other beautiful accounts that do that. And I'm like, that's not a lane I want to ride in. What I want to do is I want to tell stories that bring you closer to our experiences. And maybe you can find a little bit of yourself in one of the stories that I share. Just a sliver. I just need a little tiny bit. And I got you.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is a little. So I wanted to do that with this book and any other book that I write. I don't want to teach you what autism is. I want to show autistic people living as autistic people. Like, this is what we do. We just happen to be autistic.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are outside doing outside things. We just happen to be autistic. I wanted to write a story that was like that. I didn't want it to be like, oh, this is Aiden. He is autistic. He does not speak. He does these things. And I wanted it to just kind of show a little bit of like the human side of autism and Aiden.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to see that part of him and children and the adults that read to them. Like, I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to even know all the ways that they themselves communicate without speech. Like, we do it all the time. We text, we write, we wave, and we smile, frown. And I wanted to remind people of that as well and use that to extend grace to those like my son. As I just wanted to do something different and show something different. I wanted it to be us for sure. Like, there was a publisher in the past that I talked to and they first one publisher told me there wasn't a market for my book.
Mm.
That was kind of like, whoa. It felt weird because I'm like, why wouldn't there be a market for that book? Like disability is like it's disabled people that are the largest marginalized group in the world. Why would there be a market? And then two, another president was like, oh, we kind of like the idea, but can we make it animals? And I don't want to be animals. I don't want my son to be a bear, or like, I don't want to be an alligator. Like, I really wrong with those. I didn't want that. Like, if I'm telling you a true story about our true life, I want to be in the book. I want my son to be in the book, and I don't want us to be represented by an animal. So that wasn't that. No. So, and I wanted his tablet to look like his tablet. I didn't want it to look like something else. So I'm sending Kate the pictures, and then Kate's the illustrator. I'm sending Kate the pictures of like what our tablets look like. Mine was green. Aiden's was red. What it looked like with the straps, what it looked like, and she nailed it. So she had it looking like how it looks in the cases that we had. I just wanted it to be something that was real and authentic that people could connect with. And it didn't feel scary. And for a lot of children, that book was going to be their first introduction to not only autism, but to disability itself. And I'm like, I want to make a great impression.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to ask like tough questions, and for teachers to be able to have discussions with them and parents. That was my goal. I didn't really read too many autism books to try and compare it to. I read a couple. I didn't want to read too many. I didn't want to get stuck in like this comparison loop. So I just wanted to share the way that I share, something that was familiar to me. And so I just wanted to stay true to myself and write what I know and how I know, and in the style that I do, and hope people could connect with it.
Yeah, it's such a real story. And the way you've written it is just, so real. Because I think a lot of media and books about autism, it's either like, this character is autistic and it's very sad, or it's like, this character is disabled, but they have superpowers. And it's just like, we want like a real story. I mean, this is not what this book's about.
Or it was like, it's okay to be different. And I love all my friends, even when they're different. And I didn't want to write like that. I didn't want to write a story that made my son into another lesson. And I talk about that a lot on my page too. It's like, we know every single time we leave the house that our presence itself is a message for others. So we're always wearing that on our shoulders and our heads and stuff. Like the way we behave, the way we look and what we do, they're going to take that. They're going to internalize that. And they might apply that to the other people who look like us, who act like us. And like, we get it. So, but the thing is, I wanted to try to control as much of that message as possible. So in this book, I didn't want to make him a lesson like, oh, he's different. Let's be friends with the different person. No, I wanted to show the kid just existing and not caring what anybody else around him was doing or what was going on. And I wanted just to show that this is what we do on these days. We communicate in this way. We go to parks. He plays. He spins in grass barefoot. He has fun. We go eat. And then we assume after that we go home. But, and then that's it. That was it. That's that. Like, I didn't want him to be this lesson for others to be like, oh, let's make a friend because he's different. And that's how a lot of the stories are too as well. And I'm like, nah, I just wanted to write a story about a autistic non-speaker who is Black, who is just existing. And in all of his humanness, he's just existing. And I want that to be enough for you. Like later on, we can talk about how y'all can, and you can do a lot of like activities and stuff that tie around, understanding and engaging and friendship. And look, you tie that at the end and stuff. But this right now is just like a story of this child just existing how he is. And then like, let that story just be that.
Yeah.
And then you can add the stuff on later. But that's what I was doing with that. I was just showing he's existing. That's how he is. And I wanted to show, because that's what Aiden does every day. He doesn't know he's a lesson for others. He doesn't know, he's just living, existing, not changing, not bending to anything. He is just brave and bold and bright and a ball of love, loud, but a ball of love, a ball of loud love.
Yeah.
That's Aiden. Yeah. And I wanted to show that as best as I could
Mhm.
in that book.
Yeah.
We get to show a lot more of him in the second book.
Oh,
But this
cool.
one is like my intro into the book world, and is always going to be my book baby that I love and cherish. And I hope that with the re-release of it, that it reaches not only the same people who bought it the first time around, but a newer, wider audience who can love it just as much as everyone else who bought it loves it, and just how much we love it. And yeah.
That's awesome. It's a perfect point to the book. It's a great introduction for children. As you said, it might be the first time that they're learning about or reading about people who have disabilities, and it's just people out existing in the world. And yeah, it's not Aiden's job to be teaching people about disability and caring and friendship, unless he decides one day he wants to take that job on and, get paid
Yeah.
for it. But at this point, he's just out there living his life.
Just living his life.
Yeah.
Going outside and traveling and eating all the fries he can. And just, there's Aiden. He's just living.
Yep.
And I want that to be the message of this book, and the message of maybe most of the books already. There might be a few where I don't want to say never, but of a lot of books. I just wanted to just share, that we're just living. We're here. We're just existing, and it's cool that we're here, and I just wanted to show that, share that.
Absolutely. Having the story be told from his perspective, it really helps people understand more about what the internal experience of being a non-speaking autistic person really is. And I think it helps take away a lot of misconceptions that people have about non-speaking autistic kids. So I guess from your perspective, what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about your sons, or even about Black autistic children in general?
I want to say, for non-speakers in general, is that their student doesn't understand what's going on around him. Like, he's not aware of his surroundings. And he's most definitely aware of what goes on around him. He's even aware of the things that people say and the tone that they use, the words that they use. You can visibly see him and his body language change when someone is talking negatively about him. So he's very aware of what is going on. He just cannot tell you, in speaking words, how he feels. That's the biggest thing, is because for some reason, people think that just because you don't speak, that automatically means you cannot hear, and then that you cannot comprehend what is being said as well. And so we deal with a lot of that. A lot of assumptions on his intelligence and his comprehension. That is the biggest thing that we get from him just being a non-speaker. Now, you combine that with him being Black, which is something that they see first. Like, that's the first thing they see. They don't know he doesn't speak. They don't know any of the other things. They magnify the behaviors that he has. They always look more dangerous, more out of control, more abnormal. They look more in need of control. And so his behavior and how he interacts with the world and how he moves and how his body moves has often been seen as a threat, even when it doesn't look threatening. And so we have to deal with a lot of that, the sounds that he makes. On more than one occasion, there have been people that have actually joked that they thought the sounds that he was making was a dangerous animal and that they were going to call the police. This was just mouth sounds.
Wow.
And they didn't actually see him. And those occasions would happen at stores, and we're in an aisle, they're in a different aisle, and they can't see him. And then when they notice that, and they come around and they see that it's a human, it's a person, for some reason, they have to tell us. And they make a joke about it because apparently calling the police is funny. And so we've dealt with that a lot of times. We've dealt with a lot of law enforcement. We've dealt with law enforcement that has drawn their firearms. And that was because Aiden was trying to get his iPad, because apparently an iPad was like a weapon,
Oh,
and that was back when his case was black. And now he never has a black case anymore. They're always big and bright and bold and stand out, and do whatever I can to make it not look like whatever they thought it looked like. Like, so you're having to deal with that on top of the assumptions that she doesn't understand. And so yeah, it's a lot. It's like a double whammy, but then the whammy is hard. Like, you got to navigate doing everything you can to keep him safe. And that's a large part of what I do with Fidgets and Fries. And that's a large part of why, as a family, we sat down and discussed the decision to have our children's faces online. Because at first I was like, nah, I won't do it. If I do it, I'll put the little emoji on their face. I can't see them or do all this. But I'm like, that's not protecting him when he goes outside and he's about to be shot, or police are being called. And that just brings me back to me wanting to control as much as the message that I could. So I'm like, let me tell stories about my family. Let me tell stories about my children. And let me give a face to the stories that I'm telling so that you can see that they're human, and that they like a lot of the same things that you like, that they joke about the same things that you joke about, that they like the same types of music, that they like the same types of food. Show their humanity and remind people of their humanity. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm trying to humanize my children. No, they're already human. You should know that. Like, I'm just trying to remind you that they are. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I wanted to do with the stories and shit, so that you could see. That's why my kids couldn't be a bear in the book. I don't care if they were a brown bear. It can't be a bear. While A Day with No Words is not a quote unquote black book, black representation within the book is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Incidental representation, but you go there, you see it. And I wanted that. So it's a lot.
Yeah. The impact of racism and ableism in society on just your family's existence and just living your life is something that you write a lot about in Fidgets and Fries. And of course, your book, A Day with No Words, as you said, that representation of a Black child and a Black family is really important for people to see examples of. I'm trying to avoid saying like, well, it's teaching people lessons, but it is, reading about people's real life experiences is education for a lot of people who really have never had exposure to that.
Yeah, they're still going to learn something.
Yeah.
You're going to learn. So you're going to walk away learning something. Like, I want you to walk away learning something. I just wanted to share that we're existing.
Yeah.
And we're here. And it's okay that we are the way that we are, and nothing is inherently bad about that. And I want to share that and show you that. And I want you to take that and carry that with you. So like, yeah, you're always going to learn something. Won't be you learning something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're taking, something from this and you're carrying it with you, and that it helps you in your future interactions with, or even in your life with what you have going on. I just want to show us just being us and existing, and want to attempt to control as much of the message as possible. I think that I can. And so that's what I was doing within the story. I was trying to control that message. And that message wasn't that he's supposed to be this like forever lesson for you. I just wanted to show that he's just enjoying his day. And that it was okay that he was enjoying his day. And that should be enough. Is that here's this person enjoying being outside with his mom. He hugs trees. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he's hugging a tree. He's spinning in the grass. I mean, okay. Like, and he has no shoes on. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to show, like, this is just Aiden.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tiffany, I'm really excited for the book to come out. And by the time this episode comes out, the book will probably be like right about to launch or will have just launched. So where can people buy A Day with No Words, and where can they help support your other writing and other work through Fidgets and Fries?
I'm on Facebook, Fidgets and Fries. I'm on Instagram, Fidgets and Fries. There's a period in between the Fidgets, period, and period Fries. I am on Substack as Fidgets and Fries as well. I share more long form posts there. It's more writer friendly. So I'm there. I have a website, tiffanyhammond.com, and that can show you any of the other offerings that I have going on, like speaking engagements, consulting, things like that. You can find the book at adaywithnowords.com, and that can give you like a link to a bunch of different major retailers. I think there's a link on there for a retailer in the UK. If you're in the UK, there's one for Canada. There's also going to be an audiobook this time. There's an audiobook last time, but it came out almost a year after the book. But this time it's going to come out the same day.
Cool.
So you can pre-order that. That's also going to be on adaywithnowords.com. And you can buy it at whatever retailer you love or independent bookstore. It's also on Bookshop, and they love to give back to different bookstores to help keep their doors open. If you don't have a local bookstore near you that's carrying the book, you can either request they carry it or, buy through Bookshop and designate that bookseller as someone that can get some of the proceeds back to help them keep their doors open and stuff. Because independent bookstores are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And keep them around. They're like the heart of communities and stuff. And the money stays in your local community. So if you can shop indie, go indie.
Fabulous. And I'm also really excited to say that as part of this episode, Beyond 6 Seconds is giving away 3 copies of A Day with No Words. I'm going to share more details about that giveaway at the end of this episode and in the show notes of the episode too. So yeah, thank you so much, Tiffany.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited.
As we close out, is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know or anything else they can help or support you with?
Not really. I mean, if you already have a copy, they make good gifts. The newer copy is slightly different, but the slight changes made a world of difference. It's more glossy and it's more shiny and it's fingerprint resistant. The first copies, fingerprints everywhere. And so every time I was seeing someone, they took the jacket off. Like they had fingerprints everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The inside pages are glossy now and they feel a little bit more durable to me, and there's been some language changes on the inside jacket and the back cover, but they also make really good gifts to schools and to libraries. And one thing I'm trying to push for now is getting them donated to children's hospitals because they have libraries. My son spends a lot of time in children's hospitals. They have libraries and they're always looking for books. So you can get a copy and donate it to the library at children's hospitals. So,
Awesome. Thanks, Tiffany. It was so great to talk with you, and congratulations on the re-release of the book. And yeah, it's really exciting. Thank you for all of the great work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to my conversation with Tiffany today. And now, as promised, here are the details for the giveaway that I mentioned earlier, where up to 3 lucky listeners in the United States can win a hardcover copy of A Day with No Words. To enter, check out my Instagram post on November 11th, 2025. I'm at Beyond 6 Seconds on Instagram, and I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go right to my Instagram page. The giveaway ends at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on November 21st, 2025. Up to 3 winners will be selected at random. This giveaway is valid for listeners at U.S. addresses only. Thanks for listening to Beyond 6 Seconds. Please help me spread the word about this podcast. Share it with a friend, give it a shout out on your social media, or write a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. You can find all of my episodes and sign up for my free newsletter at beyond6seconds.net. Until next time.